All right, we're live. What up, everybody? I'm here with the founder of Rogue Panda. His name is Nick. He started Rogue Panda in 2014, and they are in Flagstaff, Arizona. Is that true? You're still in Flagstaff?
Yeah. Yep.
Sick. So, are you from Flagstaff?
No, I moved here in 2010 to do conservation work, and so I did
Okay.
like 2 years of trail work, and started out as trail work, and then ended up doing a lot of wild and cattle fencing,
Yeah.
just like fencing borders of national parks to keep cows out, basically.
Yeah.
And,
That's awesome. So did you
yeah.
go to school for that, or like what got you into that conservation work?
No, I went to school for computer science, and then that kind of as I got closer and closer to my degree, I became less and less interested in computers,
Oh yeah.
and uh, which is kind of funny because now my job is 70 or 80% on the computer.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
for a while there, I really just went the other way,
Yeah.
uh, and uh, and yeah, I just kind of I'd wanted to get back to public lands basically,
Yeah.
and I figured it made more sense to do that, you know, after college before starting a career rather than trying to take like a sabbatical later.
Yeah. So when you got to Arizona, had you always been cycling, or is that a hobby you picked up when you started doing conservation work in Arizona?
I picked up commuter cycling in college, and that was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and
Okay.
so that was like 2005, 2006, and then and yeah, growing up I just wasn't really outdoorsy at all, um, and I kind of picked up like commuter cycling and hiking and climbing all at the same time,
Yeah.
and then mountain biking more when I got into Arizona.
Dope. So what like going from computer science into making bike bags, like why bike bags? Like what got you interested in that?
It well, I got interested in making a lot of gear. Um, it took kind of a roundabout path. One thing that there were a couple trips, really 3 trips in a row in the Grand Canyon that were hiking trips that made me interested in lightening up my load, and that led me to making all my own gear. And then I heard about bikepacking and wanted to try it, and had more time than money and had a sewing machine, and I'd already been making all this other stuff, and so it was kind of a natural transition into that.
Yeah.
Um, and so, on a personal level, I've made everything from like down jackets to sleeping bags to backpacks to bike bags and all kinds of things.
Right.
Uh, but for a variety of reasons, bike bags is is what makes the most sense to go into commercially.
Yeah. Is that just
And
because the market was very much not saturated, or is it because that's what you're most passionate about?
it's a combination. I mean, it's the market being a better place to be, and then we were trying backpacks for like a couple years ago. But
Hmm.
one thing I've realized is unless I really simplify the backpack design more than I want to,
Hmm.
I can't pay people as much to make backpacks as I can to make bike bags.
Yeah, the backpack market's tough, man,
Yeah.
because I mean they require a certain level of technical expertise, right? And and it's not that we don't have the expertise, but it's the time on that we're spending touching the product. made in the US is you can't spend that much time to make it desirable for the customer. So then, yeah, you'd have to charge out the ass for those backpacks.
Yeah, I think we got our production time down to maybe 12 hours a pack, but that's really not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, what's 12 times $15 an hour, right? Like that's a lot of money. And that's not even material cost, that's not even like markup, like that's just a crazy amount of dollars.
Yeah, and we're paying over 15 is the Flagstaff minimum, and we're paying over that.
Yeah, which is awesome. Good for you, man.
So and then you add in the employer side of taxes, and then you add in workers' comp. And
Totally.
So, it easily can end up being over 20 an hour, and then you're talking like more than $250 of labor for a backpack.
Right.
Plus materials plus et cetera, and then
yeah. So when you're sourcing material, one thing that I love, so maybe I'll take this into the direction of the custom bags. So you do custom bags for people, like frame bags.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that work with like materials when someone orders a custom bag? Do you have specific materials that you offer, or do you allow people to kind of go nuts and choose a material like that is just kind of out there and their own pattern design on the fabric, all that kind of stuff?
It's a mix. I mean, we're open to quite a bit. I mean, we've had customers supply their own materials when they want something that we don't have.
Yeah.
And as long as it's something we're able to work with, we can do that.
Yeah.
The other thing we can do, and maybe I can show some examples, but I've actually got one right here of a printed fabric. So we've been doing a lot with dye sublimation.
That's cool.
And this is so this fabric starts out white.
Yep.
And then it's printed to whatever we want.
And how do you guys get those printed? Do you outsource that, or do you do that in-house?
We outsource the roll printing, so standard patterns like dead bananas.
Mm-hmm.
We outsource that because that equipment to do like full width roll printing is incredibly expensive.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, like I think it probably costs twice as much as all of our sewing machines and all of our equipment combined, if not more. Take up a bunch of space, and we would use it, not that often. So
right.
So we outsource that, but then we do have a small printing setup, so we can print pretty much any frame bag panel.
Oh, that's cool. And how does that machine work? Is it a set height and width, or is it a set width and you can kind of print like a roll?
So you print onto transfer paper at a set width, and then you cut out the transfer paper, lay it onto fabric, and then put it under heat press.
Oh, sweet. So the limitation is the transfer paper printing and then also the heat press size?
Yeah, those are the limits, and pretty much any frame bag we can do. And we wouldn't be able to do something like a tent or sleeping bags. Clothing items could get pretty tough, but frame bags tend to fit under our heat press.
Yeah,
and that opens up the door to customizations and whatever patterns people have, and then really minimal waste because we print to the exact shape of the bag.
That's cool. So you can print on, here's a good question. So you only print on white fabric, or can you print, say you have like an olive green fabric and you just need some design, like some vector art printed every now and then. Can you print on that as well?
So the process can only darken. It can't lighten fabric.
Sure.
So it can only get darker than what we start with. And the other problem is the fabrics we're using, which are for printing Pretty soon for printing, it's all going to be from Challenge Outdoor.
Awesome. I love Hale and those guys.
So our print fabric is going to be 100% recycled.
Yep.
And the only thing stopping us from that transition is the fabric's currently stuck in customs. So
yeah.
But once we get that, we'll have fully recycled fabric for all of our prints, and then we'll transition over as we run out of our stock of what we've printed already.
So before Challenge, were you guys using Dimension Polyant?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And then Hale was like, "Hey man, I can do this all recycled, and it's amazing."
Yeah. And we're still using Dimension Polyant for a lot of our solids and our camos right now.
Yeah.
And then kind of, different colors are going to transition. We're really excited about transitioning Coyote because the Coyote Brown X Pack, for whatever reason, just curls up more than the other colors. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it just has more of a curling issue. And it's just kind of annoying to work with, and the Challenge stuff doesn't curl up at all. So we're stuck that one up, but I think we have about 10 yards to go through before we can. So.
Well, and that's what I've noticed with the Dimension Polyant. When you cut it, it doesn't matter what color it is. It's all curling. And I've never realized that. Well, I've actually never used Coyote. I never realized that would curl more. But yeah, the thing that I love about the Challenge, and I don't know if it's because one's nylon, one's polyester, or if it's a warp weft like weave thing. But Challenge, when you cut it, like it just stays flat, which I love.
Yeah, I think Hale told me that's the polyester.
So. Yeah, I think that's what he told me as well, and I would imagine it. I don't think on other nylon fabrics though, when I've cut them, I've ever had that curling issue. But maybe I've just like never paid attention. Maybe I thought, oh, this is just normal. Cool. So you guys are making, I'm still here. You guys are making the full transition or a partial transition over to Challenge sailcloth. So what you guys are importing right now from Challenge, is that just all white, or are you getting some colors in that as well?
It's all white. And I mean, we do have some colors from Challenge that are just their standard colors. Mm-hmm. But then we had them make a printable fabric for us.
What was that?
Without the X-ply.
Okay, cool.
Depending on the print, that can be pretty distracting to have in the background.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, this bag here, this was made with the Challenge teal seafoam. I don't remember what they call it, but yeah, it's a great fabric. So what fabric are you bringing in from Challenge? Are you bringing in multiple styles or just one?
So it's the EPX 200, the 200 denier. That's the closest equivalent to VX21, which is what we've mostly used.
Cool.
And we're starting with black and gray, and then Coyote we have should happen this year, based on how many yards we have. And then we'll see about other colors. There's some colors that we like the shades better of X-Pack.
Yeah.
And then there's and then other ones like purple. We have such a supply of purple X-Pack. Actually, back a few years ago, I think it might have been when Hale was at Dimension Polyant. We asked him about colors, and he asked what we thought, what we were interested in. We said we'd like a purple. And he was like, well, if you buy a bunch of it, we'll make it.
Right.
And so we got to pick the shade of purple X-Pack. That's the one that they have now.
Oh, rad. So
it is a result.
Lap dip and all that.
And we're working through it, but I think it's still going to be a couple of years before we're through that roll.
Yeah, I imagine, what's that, like 300 yards you probably had to buy that?
They didn't make us do that much. They just made us do enough to like kind of cover some of their cost. But
sure.
but it's just not, we have a lot of colors, and now that we have all these different prints, it kind of dilutes the demand for any individual one.
Yeah, totally.
So we just don't. I mean, we probably make like a dozen purple frame bags a year, maybe.
Right.
We're just inching our way through that roll of fabric now.
Yeah. So if you guys are watching and you need a purple bag, now's the time, because there's plenty of inventory.
Yeah.
So when you're doing custom frame bags, what's the process like working with the customer? Because I mean, if someone's in New York, right, you don't have the bike in front of you. So like, how do you work that out with them?
Yeah, so that's one thing I think the one area in which my computer science background really came into play, because when we started in 2014, everybody was doing cardboard templates.
Right. So and what is that? So the person making the frame bag would ask the customer to trace their frame on cardboard and then ship it to them. Is that right? Okay.
And I just basically immediately, once I decided to start making them for other people, I was just like, it's the 21st century. We don't send information through the mail. That's not how this works.
That shit's stupid.
And so I figured out, well, if you have a ruler up against the bike and you step back far enough, basically the farther away you step back, the more parallel the rays of light are that are coming into the camera.
Right.
Theoretically, if they're totally parallel, then it's like a two-dimensional image, and it's as good as a CAD drawing.
Totally.
And yeah, so we started doing that, and then that methodology, the internal methodology of what we do with that photo, has evolved. Like first it was doing some actual math on the photo. Mm-hmm. Now it's entirely digital, and then we print out the patterns.
That's awesome.
And then in between we had a system where we projected it down onto a table and scaled it, and then just traced a pattern on the projection.
That's rad.
So we've done it a bunch of different ways, but that was how we started it, and now it's pretty much every major custom frame bag maker uses that same idea of taking a photo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so powerful, and that's kind of one of my things is when I came into designing and making bags, I was never really an analog person. I've been on Illustrator since I was like 13, just making graphics and, a bunch of other random stuff. So when I came into this, it just made sense to me of like, oh, this is vector drawing. Like, let me just draw things on Adobe Illustrator. And then now with like Clo 3D and just kind of improving that process, I'll work with people that have been in the industry for 20 years, and they're still like manually drafting patterns. They'll cut and sew a sample, and I'm like, cool, can you send me that pattern so I can like digitize, or like, so I can like build it in Clo 3D. They're like, oh yeah, I can send that to you next week because I need to like digitize it. And I was like, what do you mean you have to digitize it? It's like, is that not just part of the process of where you start, is just in digital?
Yeah, that's been a big shift for us. It took us a surprisingly long time to get there. But yeah, now I'm currently designing a seat bag and a handlebar harness right now. And that's all, it's all happening in Inkscape because it's just what I know how to use. Kind of like how you said you're good with Illustrator, and it's just what I know how to use, what I'm good at, and shortcuts, and it works.
Yeah, it gets the job done.
It's the job done, and it's pretty intuitive the way it handles like vector curves and
is Inkscape, is that a free program?
It's a free program. It's basically like an open source. It's trying to serve the same function as Illustrator.
Sure. I'm gonna have to jump in there and try it out, because I had people fill out a survey the other day because I want to put out a lesson on pattern making in Illustrator, and I asked people what they currently use, and there was a couple of people using Inkscape in there. So I always find it like when I first started sewing, I just went straight into industrial machines. I had very little home sewing machine experience. So like in the MyOut community, people would be like, what home sewing machine should I get? And I was like, I literally have no idea. Like I don't know what a home sewing machine can handle. So a couple months ago, I actually like bought 2 of the home sewing machines that most people were using in that community, just so I could like understand it. So I'm going to do the same thing with the Inkscape, because I just feel like when you're like trying to educate with people, it's so much easier to know like where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of custom frame bags, you guys also make like universal bags.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one other program I saw on your website, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but I'm gonna have to pull it up here on my computer.
Yeah.
Panda Swag.
Yeah, we've started to get into the hats, and next up is water bottles.
Sick. Yeah, water bottles make sense, man. Those socks are pretty fresh too.
Yeah. They're we're pretty stoked about it. It's something we've been wanting to do forever, and we just finally got around to it this year.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing universal fit bags the whole time, or did you start with custom frame bags?
Pretty much the whole time.
Cool.
Like the universal fit bags are for a different part of the bike. So we don't make like a universal fit frame bag.
Sure.
The universal fit bags are just like on top of the top tube and under the down tube and places like that.
And I've seen that companies do make universal frame bags that are they're not actually like the full triangle. They're maybe just like the top of the inner frame.
Yeah.
And then they just come in like different lengths. But I would imagine it's pretty damn hard to make universal frame bags because all frames are so different.
Yeah, I can see how you could fit a lot of like hardtails, like a lot of surly frames and stuff like that. You could make something that generally fits those.
Sure.
It's just not something I've really ever been interested in.
Sure.
Especially now, like so much of our stuff is made to order anyway, and now with the prints, we're really kind of leaning into that.
Yeah.
On demand, like we used to keep the top 2 bags in stock, and now we just make them on demand. So we're kind of moving to a model where like everything is on demand with a lead time.
Yeah. And how long ago did you decide to make that transition?
It kind of happened naturally with COVID, just because we ran out of stock so fast, and then it was made to order anyway.
Right.
And then it kind of happened naturally because of internal reasons. We upgraded our website to make it easier to choose different prints. And as part of that process, we lost the ability to keep track of stock of some of those items.
Sure.
And so we decided just to stop doing that. And now that we have all these different prints, like it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
To try to keep them all stocked in all the different bags, just in case someone orders one.
Sure. So what percentage of your sales, and you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, is like custom frame bags versus like just the universal stuff?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's probably about 50-50, maybe a little bit towards the custom.
Yeah.
It's probably going to shift in the other direction when we get more bags out there, because custom frame bags are kind of set. We've got we upgrade the design sometimes. We're working on a new roll top design, but like it's pretty much, you can get one of those per bike. But the universal bags, we've got the top 2 bags and under the down tube, but then we're also looking at a handlebar harness and a seat bag, which is what I'm working on now.
What's a handlebar harness?
It's basically just something that hooks onto your seat bag or onto your handlebars and your head tube and lets you hold a dry bag in there.
Okay. So you can attach all sorts of different bags on that harness system?
Yeah, and we'll probably we'll have like our own dry bags as an option. Mostly just because then you can get them in all the prints, so that
That's cool.
your frame bag can match your dry bag that's on your handlebar harness, which can match the dry bag that's in your seat bag.
Yeah. So when you say dry bags, I mean your seam sealing?
So what I found what I really like the durability of this is X-Pack or Challenge Outdoor, one of those, sewn with an exterior seam allowance,
Mm-hmm.
and then just a line of seam grip on the inside.
Dope.
Plan with those will be to ship a small tube of seam grip with the bag. We just don't have the facility to do mass seam sealing here.
Yeah. I mean, seam sealing's its own beast. I mean, working with factories overseas, seam sealing, I mean, depending on the fabric, you have to get the certain, chemical structure. Like they have so many different types of tapes, like Bemis offers and, other knockoff brands. And then you have to have this specialized machinery that costs probably twice as much as all the sewing machines in the shop as well. Like it's just insane. That's what I'm trying to source a tape, because a lot of people are using this 3M. They just buy it on like Amazon, and I can't remember the model number. I'll have to look it up. And they'll just put fabric on one side, cut the strip, cut the tape out, and then put the tape on the other side, and that's what they're using for seam sealing. And my thought is, well, shit, like why can't we just have a single-sided tape that's the exact same thing, just not double-sided, where you could just tape all your seams? And for corner seams, it'd be a lot harder, but for straight seams, like perfectly viable, especially for like Myog homemakers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a challenge finding like sourcing that kind of adhesive stuff, because like 3M, they're the player in the game. But
yeah, I looked into it for a little bit, like different kinds of tapes, but I just found that seam grip on X-Pack, it soaks into that internal 50 denier polyester layer.
yeah,
And you can do it really well, and it just is really durable. And I mean, I have dry bags that are, I think my oldest one might be like 5 years, that have been through a lot of canyoneering, so quite a bit of abrasion, and also a lot of submersion, which is a kind of a higher standard than what most people like. Definitely a higher standard than what you need for like a handlebar dry bag or a seat bag dry bag.
right.
And they've handled submersion really well.
Dude, that's wild.
After a few years, you might get a few pinhole leaks, but you can just turn it inside out, fill it with water, find those leaks, patch them,
Yeah.
and then go again.
So, so with your dry bags, you'll basically make exterior seams, use X-Pack or North Pack, or sorry, not North Pack, Challenge. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm stuck on North. And then you'll just ship a tube of the seam, and then they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
Rad. That sounds cool. So outside of dry bags, are there any other bags like on Handlebar that you're considering developing, or is that just pretty much the only thing on the roadmap right now?
That's the only thing right now. That's the biggest demand is having a harness.
Cool.
We do have our Bismarck bottle bucket, which I'll grab one, but the Bismarck bottle bucket's kind of unique because it's a water bottle specific handlebar stem bag.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of having a drawstring opening, which they do have there are decent like one-handed drawstring closures these days,
Sure.
but there's still a bit of work to open up wide enough to get a water bottle in and out.
Yeah.
Kind of a couple steps to like get that open, get it out, take a drink, put it back, close it.
Mm-hmm.
So ours is just an open top with a bottle cage mounted in it.
Oh, cool.
And so it's just grab and go with the water bottle, and then we put a bunch of pockets around the outside to add more functionality and add a bunch of room for snacks.
That's rad. So
So
I'm building a frame bag for my bike because I've never made a frame bag or had one. What are your favorite features to have, just like commuter level, or like, say, like, I'm not a serious cyclist by any
mhm.
means. I'll just like ride around town, put my kids in the trailer, go to an ice cream shop. I'll run and I'll grab groceries. But like in the frame pack itself, like what are the most essential features in your mind?
For commuting, I really like a thin side pocket,
Hmm.
and depending on what bags you have, that can be either like phone, wallet, keys, or it can be like where all your tools go, just for some kind of separate organization there.
Yeah.
Um, on my trail bike, I actually didn't put a side pocket because um, I've got a split triangle full suspension frame, so I have a frame bag above the shock, a frame bag below the shock, two top tube bags, and then I'll run like two of our handlebar buckets, and then a handlebar bag and a seat bag, and so I've just got, and I'll run a small backpack. So I just got bags on bags on bags, and
Right.
I just don't feel the need for that extra compartmentalization.
Right.
Then on my commuter, I use it all the time, and it's super useful.
Dope.
Um,
Mm,
and
I
then is tall, like if it's like a larger, like a size like 56 or higher, and like a kind of standard road frame, or like a larger XL and mountain bike frames, just depending on the shape.
yeah.
Having like two zippers and a vertical divider is huge.
Got it. So like you're talking about a divider horizontal to separate vertical compartments.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah, that that's something that I think I'll definitely do. I got hit up on Instagram by Hungry. I think the guy's out of Australia,
Hmm.
and he was telling me about, like, putting a slot for like a hydration bladder. And I was like, "Oh shit, I never even thought about a hydration." Like, do you ever run hydration uh hoses out of your bags?
Um, I don't, because I actually don't use hydration hoses at all. I'm
Yeah.
just the I've just transitioned over the years to completely bottles. I just got tired of dealing with cleaning them, and also
Yeah.
I drink more. I'm more often drinking like an energy mix. I actually make my own version of Tailwind, which is one of my favorite. Tailwind is one of my favorite energy mixes, and I went and found all of the different electrolytes online, and I make my own mix. Um,
Savage.
so I drink that, but then I'm like, I just don't like dealing with cleaning hoses that have had that in them,
Right.
and so I moved away. But one of my employees does it quite a bit, and a lot of our customers use it and use hydration hoses, and we do put a port out front, which I
Gotcha.
actually do. Yeah, you can't really see that, but
Oh, I
I
can see
actually
it. Yeah, we're good.
I actually do use the port on my commuter bag, because my commuter bike now is electric assist, and I've got a small battery in the frame bag, and then I run the electrical cable out that port.
Repurpose. That's rad.
Which is it's pretty great in Flagstaff. Flagstaff's a pretty windy. It can be really windy here. Not so much this time of year, but winter and spring.
Yeah.
You Lots of times this last winter, I would wake up and look at the forecast, and it would be like, you know, high of 40 or high in the 30s, and like 40-mile-per-hour headwind,
Yeah.
and
Oof.
I would just bundle up and get on the e-bike and ride my way to work, because I can still ride 20 miles an hour into a 40-mile headwind.
Dang. Dude, that's
So
wild.
once I kind of, yeah, the e-bike is really at least doubled the number of days I rode my bike to work this year. Maybe
That's Dude, that's amazing.
Just because my shop and my house are on opposite sides of town now as well, so it's just a longer commute, and
Yeah.
so that's.
Dude, I got a buddy who just showed me an e-bike. He bought it. He calls it the Tesla of e-bikes, and I don't even remember where that damn thing is from. But it's got, and maybe you know what it is, but it's got like the batteries are like built into the tubes. And when I saw that, it's got like an alarm, and also he runs it all from his app. And when I saw that, I was just like, "What the hell is this?" Let me see if I can Google it. I'll just Google Tesla of e-bikes and see if I can find something.
Yeah, they get pretty fancy. Mine's an aftermarket kit that I retrofitted onto my beat up old hardtail and turned that into a computer.
Oh, that's rad. How do you do that? Like, does it just have like a little motor that attaches to the back wheel, or?
They make rear and front motors. This is a bottom bracket motor, so it actually replaces the bottom bracket and sits right there.
Oh, cool.
Which is a bad place if you're like riding on trails, because you can hit it. But
Sure.
I only e-bike to commute, and then I just ride a regular mountain bike on trails, so that doesn't bother me.
I ain't no wuss. I ride a real bike on the trails.
Yeah. I mean, my focus is different. On my commute, I'm trying to get to work.
Right.
On my trail bike, I'm trying to have fun and
totally
and
get a solid sweat going.
yeah.
But I remember one year, this is years ago, I had a shop down at the bottom of the hill in Tacoma, like in downtown, and I lived on the top of the hill, and it's pretty sizable. So I bought all the like commuter gear. You know, I was telling my wife, I was like, I'm gonna commute and it's gonna be awesome, and get my bike and commuter gear, and I would just ride up this hill. And in Washington, it's rainy as shit. So I did it like for a week, and then I was done. And now I'm like, well, shoot, man, if I had an e-bike, I would have no problem doing that. I found that bike I was talking about. It's called the Van Moof. VanMoof. I'm gonna post it in the little comments and with the link.
That I have never. We have not had someone ask.
I hope someone has this and ask for a frame bag. That would be so dope.
That hasn't happened yet, but
what is this one?
Let's see.
Oh, apparently I can put users in timeout. That's cool. Let me view this on YouTube. I think never mind. I might have messed up that link, but there it is for people to check out. Oh, claimed for all, said Van Moof. Yeah, okay. We got a question by Red Pop Pax. It says, hey Nick, do you still make any of the frame bags, or have you transitioned to your team making 100% of them?
I've pretty much transitioned. So right now I do all of the patterning for the frame bags. So all of that work in Inkscape to make the patterns, and a lot of the work to like sometimes if people have custom prints but they're not fully, if there's like graphic design work that needs to happen to get from customer artwork to actually something ready to print, I'll do that. One thing I've learned is if I'm gonna work on frame bags, that I need to just, if I have extra time, I need to just go in and cut the fabric for the next run and then leave them. Because if I try to do it from start to finish, it's no bueno. Other things will come up, something I'll get halfway through, I'll leave it, I'll have to do something else that week, and things will happen, and then it'll just get left and someone else will have to finish it. So it's easier just to, if I can do anything, I cut the fabric. Usually that doesn't happen even, because that's a good stage where I can leave it and someone can pick it up, and it just speeds up the process, and
right.
I don't have to like figure out where in the process I left off. And
right. Yeah, I feel that. Same, dude. Any tips for scaling a small sewing business?
My biggest, I guess the biggest one would be like a piece of advice that I got really early on from one of my local bike shops from the manager at Flagstaff Bike Revolution here in Flag, Austin. We were talking about hiring, and he said humans are smart and you can train them how to do things. So like, don't be totally set on skills as your reason to hire.
Hell yeah.
Like, it's better to hire obviously it's best to hire someone who you want to work with and is nice and is skilled and will have everything, which we do have employees who started that way. But, if you're choosing, don't be afraid to hire someone who doesn't know how to sew, but has other experience working with their hands and has a good attitude and has like everything else that you're looking for. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and I think with that, any tips for scaling a small sewing business? I think, it's hiring is definitely, I always hire people that are the culture fits, right? It's like, I want to hang out with these people, right? Like, that's who I'm going to hire. But even before hiring, it's like, dude, it's understanding the business model, right? Understanding your model and understanding your costs, understanding your margins. It's like, if you can shake out the dollars, then you'll understand like at what point you can hire somebody, right? And that's like the business acumen that, when I first started my business, I didn't know shit. Like, I knew nothing. I remember I started working with this company and they were like, "Oh, what's the bill of materials on this bag?" And I was just like, "Bill of material? What's a bill of materials? I don't know what that is." And they're like, "Well, our goal MSRP is this, and this is based off of a 70% margin." And I was just like, what the hell's a margin? I don't know what any of this is. So it's like, once I understood those things, which was too late in the game, I had already had employees. But that was a huge thing for me, because then I could like really dive into the business side of things and really understand like what it was that my goal was, right? Like, if I hire this person, and this is the output that they can produce this is what I pay them. This is how long they work in a week. This is how much we can produce in a week. And then I can understand like the financials. Like, I don't know. For me, it's like, that's huge. Derek, great advice. You and offset some of the skill with types of automation such as box X and Bartak machines. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think you meant can offset some of the skill.
Yeah. I think that was more of a comment. Totally. And then Derek says more education on BOM is needed for new and experienced business owners. That's 100% true. Sweet. So do you build out a BOM or like right now you're developing this dry sack? Do you have like a goal cost that it comes into, and a goal MSRP, or like, how do you approach developing a product and setting the price?
We're pretty early in the stage, so right now we're just kind of focused on right now I'm basically focused on the functionality and right now the biggest thing with handlebar harnesses is figuring out how to provide clearance for cables.
You just cut them off, man. Cut off the who needs cables?
I mean, there's wireless shifting nowadays, so just tell all our customers to get that.
Wait, is that for real?
There is wireless shifting. It is the thing.
Wait, how does this work? You got to educate me.
Like a transmitter on the handlebars in your shifter, and then there's a receiver at the shift, and you just like go up a gear, down a gear, and I'm not a huge fan of it personally, but I mean, I get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would just be sketched out that it wouldn't work when I really want it to.
Yeah.
But also, I don't ever want to be like that old dog that can't learn a new trick, right? So like, if that thing becomes like standard, okay, cool, like that's awesome. It sounds rad if they can like really make it work.
I mean, and I think it does. I think generally it works really well. But yeah, I don't know. Just dealing with. Then you got to deal with like keeping those batteries charged, and I'm just like, I just want to grab my bike and ride.
Dude, I have a hard enough time like keeping my light batteries charged for my bike.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be nighttime and I'll go put on my red light and I'm like, fuck, man, it's dead.
Totally.
Sorry though, I interrupted about kind of the costing as you're developing.
Yeah, so it's kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm not at the stage yet where I'm going to figure out the materials, and in general, like in this case, the materials are going to be a little higher because we're gonna get some sort of parts made to help space the bag away from the handlebars for clearance.
Oh, cool.
And that is gonna add its own cost. But in general, the cost is labor.
Yeah.
And overhead to some degree, like, overhead and materials are some of it, but labor is like the driving factor in something costs.
Well, it's people that are experienced like you, I mean, 2014, that's 7 years in the business, you start to understand, you start to get a really good idea. As you're developing something, you don't always have to run through the exercise because you have a good idea of like what this product is going to cost you. And that's one thing that I've noticed is just as experience comes, if someone's like, this is the bag, these are the kind of features, this is the material, and I want it made in Vietnam or the US, I already know in my gut, like, well, it's going to be within this range of bill of materials cost. So you're with all these feature sets, like this is what you're going to have to sell it for if you want this margin. But as far as, Red Paw packs, I think, figuring out the bill of materials so you can start getting that gut instinct of what a product cost is huge.
Yeah.
Well, sick. Any other advice for people that want to get into the bag game?
I'm trying to think. I mean, that's really the big. I mean, that's really been the big thing for me. I'm sure I can come up with something else if I think about it. But
So
that's
like hire your homies.
Yeah. Or don't. I mean, that's another can of worms. Like hiring people you're already actually friends with can be not great. But,
I don't like that idea at all. Family, friends, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, hiring for fit and hiring for culture is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's see. Oh, we got another question.
How do you choose what bikes to make bags for first? Since tons of bikes have different frame sizes and such, or was it due to what you were using first?
So we're just all on demand for frame bags.
Yeah, it's all
so
custom.
We don't basically our customers choose that by whatever they order.
Yeah. And then the universal bags, I mean, that'll fit on pretty much any bag in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean that'll fit on pretty much everything. And with that, we kind of have gone for a philosophy that kind of comes out of like what bikepacking means in Arizona specifically, which I've learned is we're in a little bit of a bubble here, so I have to be a little careful with that, but at the same time there's something to be said for just making the product that choosing like the niche that and that makes sense to you, and then you can always let another company fill another niche.
Totally.
And in Arizona, bikepacking generally means a high percentage of single track.
And what is single track?
Just like narrow, 1 to 2 foot wide bike trails that are generally pretty rocky, and lots of people here ride full suspension bikes for all of their bikepacking.
Yeah.
So, which is not the norm, I think.
Sure.
Last time we did an Instagram poll of what people preferred from our customer base, it was only like 15% were full suspension, which really surprised me because from our local customers, a lot of them are full suspension, and a lot of the ones who aren't get a bag for a hardtail, and then they come back like 6 months later, and they're like, "No, I want to ride my full suspension. I need a new bag."
Yeah.
So like our seat bag and our handlebar bag, like, our seat bag is going to be compatible with the dropper post because that is pretty much an essential item nowadays for riding on technical terrain. And it's something everyone already has on full suspension bike. Nobody takes those off to go bike packing, and just it's not really like that's just kind of something that everyone runs, and so I don't see us ever making a seat bag that's not dropper compatible. Like that's really the only direction we're heading, and just because we're just going to make what we know and what makes sense to us. And there's other companies that make really big seat bags that are not dropper compatible and are designed to carry a lot more gear, and that's fine. We don't have to cater to every niche in the market.
Totally. Yeah, that's huge, and that's great business advice in general too. I mean, just don't try to feed everybody, right? Just feed yourself. And I mean, niche markets are huge. And you get a ride down in Sedona. That place is gorgeous. I can't wait to someday get down there. What is bike packing like in Sedona?
There's some routes that go through it. But it's kind of, I mostly go down there just day riding. I have not actually bike packed in Sedona proper. I have ridden there a lot, and I've ridden there a lot with bike packing bags on my bike, but not actually bike packing, because that is a great way to product test. Is maybe take a seat bag, take it down to Sedona, beat it up.
Yeah.
Figure out what you want to change, go back to town, make a new one, repeat.
That's awesome.
So I have ridden those trails with a loaded seat bag for basically no reason, like carrying around a sleeping bag that I don't intend to use.
I do that a lot.
Because that's the other thing is we're designing a seat bag that's intended to be hit with your rear tire.
Sure.
Like it's intended to be used in a way that you basically, when your dropper post is down, you lose travel because you only get 2 or 3 inches instead of 5 inches or whatever your bike has, because your wheel on a big hit is just going to hit the seat bag every time.
Got it.
And so we're adding a skid plate that protects the seat bag.
Oh, that's cool.
And
Here's a good one. Can you describe the learning curve for when you started adding layers of foam and plastic into your bags?
Let's see how much of that I can remember. Because we started out with foam pretty immediately. And I think initially I maybe put in some kind of flap to finish the bag and then put the foam in. It's been kind of interesting. Like thinner foam you can baste onto the fabric and then have the foam actually go into the seam.
Yeah, like 1/8 inch or like 3 millimeter foam.
1/8 inch, sometimes quarter if you have an industrial, depending on the bag. And that's how we do like all of our top tube bags, and that adds a little more stability. That works great for like thinner foam. For frame bags, we sew the whole bag and leave the short ends seams open, and then we stuff everything in that way, and then close them up and bind it.
So do you, in your frame bags, are you adding foam in every panel, or is it just specific panels?
It's foam in every panel, and then it's plastic in the top, because that helps kind of distribute the it just kind of helps the bag look nicer, like it sags less in between the different Velcro straps and just gives it a nicer look on the top.
Oh, cool.
It can help the zipper run a little smoother. And then we do a lot of bolt-on bags. So bolt-on bags always get plastic in those curves because there it's one layer of fabric, foam, plastic, foam, more fabric. So
what's a bolt-on bag?
So that's one where we attach it to the bottle cage bolts on the frame.
Oh, okay.
And so we'll just do actually, here's one. This one's got bolt holes in there.
Oh, word.
Maybe see, but yeah. So we've got.
Is that just like a buttonhole?
It's just a punch hole, and we just use fabrics that don't fray.
Oh, cool. All right, let me see. Nick, as a hobbyist, oh yeah, that is cool. Nick, as a hobbyist, I make frame bags for cycle friends. Getting lots of requests for bolt-on bags. Any tips? I figured using some 1/4-inch grommets, but anything to firm up the fabric?
So we do HDPE, which nowadays we source it in some pretty huge quantities, but as a hobbyist, Tap Plastic sells like HDPE for cutting boards, and basically the flexible cutting boards is what you want, that really thin stuff. And that just gives the bag like the side-to-side rigidity, because you've got these two, you got the two bolts holding it in place to the frame here, and like the plastic keeps it from flexing this way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then
so the bolt-on, so you just put the bag on over the bolt holes, and then what? You just like have a washer and a screw, or like you actually put the water bottle thing in there?
We've had customers ask about every once in a while. Someone will ask about putting the water bottle cage in the bag.
Some idiot like me who thinks it's a great idea.
I've never tried it. I suspect it will. It's one of those things that you'll quickly figure out is not a good idea once you try it. But
yeah, just like the sound of it. I'm like, oh man, that would be so cool. And then I think about it, and I'm like, that actually sounds like the worst user experience on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enough said about that. That's all. All right. Well, I've learned. So now that I got to make my frame bag, now I know that I have to use foam and plastic. So I have to use plastic on the top.
Mm-hmm.
What do you use? 1/4-inch on the rest of the gusset? Or
you broke it for a second.
Oh, okay.
I heard plastic on the top, and then you broke up.
Okay, so I have to use plastic on the top, and then the rest of the gusset. Is it 1/4-inch or 1/8, or what are you using? Or I mean, you don't have to tell me what you use, but if you were recommending like my DIY project, what would you stack?
We use 1/8.
Okay. So you use 1/8 all the way around in like a frame bag, and except for like, and then you add the plastic on the top.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good. I got a shit ton of 1/8.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, it's not under that much stress. Like, there's a world of difference between an 1/8 and nothing.
Yeah.
Not really any appreciable difference between an 1/8 and a 1/4.
I made this bag a couple years ago just for the back of my bike. For this, that little, what do you call those? Rail? Like, I don't know what they're called.
Oh, just the rear rack?
Yeah, rear rack, thanks. And I didn't put any foam on it. So when I'm riding, this thing is just like all over the place, and it drives me nuts. And I've just never taken the time to fix it or like make another one. But I've always been curious, like, well, what's the right amount of padding? Because I know a 1/4-inch, like I know a 1/4-inch is going to be enough. But I'm just like, man, for the frame bag, it makes sense that an eighth, because there's not a lot, like it's secured on all three sides, right? Something like that might need, 1/4 inch on the side walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you try to add rigidity if the foam's serving the purpose of rigidity as well, then you'll need something thicker.
For sure. Well, sick, man. Well, thanks for the great conversation. Is there anything you want to plug to the peeps?
I didn't really think about that. I guess just, we've got, I think the Challenge Outdoor stuff's pretty cool. Dude. You're already on that bandwagon. Yeah. Keep an eye out for we'll have the print fabric. Like our prints are going to start to transition to recycled in the coming months. And then, we'll be posting on our Instagram about all kinds of, about new prints and new bags.
Dope. Well, excited to see it.
So hoping, end of the year at the latest for seat bags and handlebar bags, but we'll see.
Awesome, man. Well, if you need anything from me, just let me know. Happy to help push out any information that you want to get to the peeps. You obviously have your own followers, but if any of these nerds in here need the info, then I'd be happy to. And I call them nerds because I'm a nerd, bag nerd. So I don't mean that to be offensive. I should probably preface that. Yeah, man. Well, I hope you have an awesome day, and thanks for jumping on and talking about bags. I might have to hit you in the DMs for any random ass bike bag questions I have, because I'm such a noob to bike bags.
Yeah, I'm curious if you're gonna do any tutorials or videos about that 3D modeling.
I am. Absolutely. Well, on my YouTube channel, did you see the Clo 3D video I did?
Oh, I haven't. I just saw one of your Instagram posts about it.
Okay. Yeah, I did put together a video on like how to create a bag in Clo 3D. There's some stuff now that I know that I wouldn't, so that video is kind of like early. But yeah, man, if you have any questions, let me know. Right now I'm building out a course for how to pattern in Adobe Illustrator, because I feel like that's a lot more approachable for a lot of people. But then after that, I'm going to be putting together how to build patterns and bags in Clo 3D specifically. And that kind of goes hybrid with like a vector program with like Illustrator, Inkscape, because I think both of those in tandem are pretty powerful. But yes, definitely. Also, if you ever get Clo and you just have random questions, hit me up. I'm happy to share any knowledge I have on that.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see. Right now, I just draw out the patterns in Inkscape, and then they come together in 3D just in my head.
Totally. I know how that goes. Yeah, you get pretty good at like making patterns turn into 3D objects in your brain, right?
Yeah, what I found really works for me is that I really need to be lying down with my eyes closed to do it really well.
Totally.
I like cut out visual input and motion input, and so that my brain can just kind of exist in this pattern space and work on like the design.
Yeah. And even when I'm like I'll work on a pattern just in Illustrator, this is pre-Clo. And I would just have to like imagine the bag. I'd close my eyes, imagine the bag, and I would step away from the computer and just like go do something else that wasn't like mentally taxing, like clean the dishes or something like that. And I would just be like imagining how this pattern comes into physical form. It's like a meditation. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. One last question. What's a good supplier for foam? Can I buy some from you if I live in Flagstaff? I'm assuming he lives in Flagstaff.
I mean, if you live in Flag, you can come on by and buy some. We have been Well, we were buying from this Phoenix trim and auto supply company, but they have been out of stock of basically all their 1/8 inch stuff for months and months and months.
That's the worst.
And so we had to, but we were kind of switching anyway to a much bigger company that is not a good. It's not a good choice for a hobbyist.
Yeah. Like Worldwide Foam or something.
Yeah.
And I actually on bagbuff.com I have foam. I have both 1/8 inch and 6 or 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch, which is 3 millimeter and 6 millimeter. So if you're looking for foam, go there. Or if you're in Flagstaff, go visit Nick because he'll get you some. Because he doesn't have to ship it.
Yeah, I mean that sounds great. Yeah, that makes more sense than BagBuff makes more sense than any of the places that we buy our foam from because they're all.
Yeah, it's hard.
At this point, all our suppliers are pretty high order quantity.
Yeah. Well, and the stuff that I had bought from Worldwide Foam. I think they're in California. They have a couple places, but I think I had to buy like 100 yards of like each foam at 60-inch width. I mean, I just have these massive spools that I've had for years that I'll literally never go through. I was like, I should probably just sell this on BagBuff. I'm sure people want foam.
Yeah. I guess the other thing I'll throw out there is if any make your own gear folks, we don't normally sell fabric, but we, if anyone wants to buy like a
Purple.
4 or 5 yards of purple or whatever, like a significant, like a reasonable amount, that would help us speed up our transition to recycled. So,
dude, that'd be rad.
Okay, the one that's the next one to transition for sure.
Which one?
Coyote.
Yeah, man. If you're trying to offload anything, let me know. I would be happy to post it on BagBuff to the Myog folks. That'd be rad. I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm gonna start doing flash sales every day on Instagram, just like posting $20 shipped, like buy this random assortment of webbing and hardware or something.
Yeah.
So awesome, brother. Well, thanks for the chat. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Good luck with the biz, and we'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
You too.